Welcome to the Cruise Lifestyle.
All right, welcome, Bruce. Thanks. For dropping in once again. It's good to catch up.
My pleasure. Yeah,
been a heck of a lot.
This week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just go through, I guess, some of the things that have been happening last week, and we'll probably touch on some of the more important things a bit later on.
Sure.
Now, just sort of reviewing what's been happening. NCL are still hoping for an Australian season 2022.
Yeah, so they've done their quarterly financial update, and that included quite a detailed return to service plan, and definitely Australia is on that agenda for March 2022, when they've got Norwegian Spirit scheduled to come down here. So that's, may it be so. And it's great that they're still planning on that, given the intransigence of the government, but, wait and see, as we say every time, fingers and toes crossed.
So at this time, that was reported probably early in the week. So at this stage, nothing's changed on that. So hopefully...
Nothing's changed, yeah, definitely. And look, they probably have to, that's 4 months away. They probably have to make a decision pretty soon in terms of if they were to cancel it or whatever, it'll take a while to get the ship down here.
And how long was she supposed to be? I can't remember how long it's supposed to be.
She was going to be here, 3 months, I think, but it was right over the summer season. And so I think it'll only be quite a short season at the moment. I guess the upside of it is that because it's one of the last NCL ships scheduled to return to service, they're getting pretty good at. They'll have everything. I think it can happen faster in terms of ramping up crew, training, etc., etc.
Yeah.
It's still got to get here, and that's a couple of months sailing at least. I think from the Northern Hemisphere, it's maybe, I think it's 35 days or something like that. That is the quickest they can do the actual repositioning. But still, as we know, lots of questions to be answered around quarantine, etc. for the crew. So anyway, yes.
So lots of questions to be asked about the questions.
Yeah.
Celebrity Apex, got a christening ceremony coming up.
Yes.
Now they've got a lawyer as the godmother. That one, and she's into sort of some charity things that they're taking on board as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. They've actually had the christening. Her name's Reshma Sorjani, and it kind of reflects this whole repositioning of the celebrity brand. It's gone up market. They sort of call it modern luxury, but into this all-inclusive, premium product. But also they've identified that the sort of cruises that they take on with their families, they do want to attract families, but the sort of people, they want their kids to not just, play Xbox all day in the kids club. They want them to learn something. And so this lawyer who's the godmother, she's founded this charity called Girls Who Code. It's sort of, I think they call it STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And so sort of having enrichment experiences. I think that's sort of where it's heading, the idea that the activities for kids, that they can go on a cruise vacation and come back actually improved rather than just full of red cordial.
And send them back to the parents.
yeah. So it's an interesting.
I think that's awesome. There's a whole lot of stuff. And ships are a great place for learning.
Absolutely.
As well,
but
it's
travel broadens the mind.
absolutely.
As we always say. Yeah. So yes, excellent news.
Yeah. Now Fred Olsen has launched an inaugural cruise for Ballet.
Yes.
Now that is actually the former Amsterdam with Holland America.
Yeah, that's right. And so this is nice too, that they're actually, we're not seeing just existing cruise product restarting, but this is actually a new ship purchased through the pandemic when, people were rationalising their fleets, but, very, very exciting that they are actually, restarting with a new product. So, but look, it's definitely a UK-centric product. Fred Olsen, very much targeting the British clientele, but really such a great thing to see, the way that they're actually getting things going again.
Yeah, it's good to see some of these ships sort of living on. I guess
absolutely.
So many Amsterdam was here quite regularly. They used to do round the world cruise, and it was here towards the end last year. But it's good to see that.
Compared to those, those very sad things that we saw, maybe 12 months ago of these, ships where people had such lovely holidays getting driven at high speed into a beach in Turkey when they're dismantled. It's nice that some of them have been able to live on.
Yeah,
like this.
she's a lovely ship too.
It's fantastic.
We've been speaking about sustainability over the last couple of weeks, and there's been some more news on that.
This was really interesting. So Hurtigruten highlighted this study to us, and it's a report by a consumer group, a bit like Finder.com, I think, in Germany, but they've sort of thought, let's rate cruise lines based on their sustainability, pledges. And it's not really clear to me what the exact criteria was, but Hurtigruten, which of course, they've got these battery-powered ships and, go into the pristine waters and, massive. In fact, they won't even join CLIA, the Cruise Lines Industry Association, because they don't want to be associated with anyone. They kind of can't buy into some of the sort of lowest common denominator, where some of those members of CLIA are still using heavy fuel. But anyway, so great news. They've been top rated, but then it turned out that Virgin Voyages, I think it's Scarlet Lady, also topped the list. Not that there's anything against Virgin Voyages, but I think essentially it is really great to see that all the cruise lines, any new cruise ship, it's being built with sustainability top of mind. And so because the Virgin vessel is brand new, I think it was, some of the thing was the track record of the ship, and so it was the Hurtigruten's Fridtjof Nansen was the other one, and again, very new ship, only a couple of years old, the second sort of expedition ship in their fleet. I think it might have only sailed one season, if that, prior to COVID. But yes, so very interesting, and then there was a whole array. Basically, they tied for first, and then there were a whole array of ships that tied for second, including MSC, and then tied for third. So I don't know that you can sort of pin, particular prestige to it, but the fact that things are even being rated on sustainability is a good sign.
Well, it starts a momentum. I mean, if they're going to start comparing sustainability, well, it's a race that everyone wants to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of thing. So
doesn't hurt. Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
National Cabinet, they've noted cruising, which is the first time they've sort of done that for ages. But
that's all they've done. So I mean, I guess it's good that cruise is on the agenda, for that National Cabinet meeting, but basically it's, we've read it, we're not actually doing anything about it at the moment as far as we can tell, and that sort of bubbled over to a bit of frustration from CLIA, who I think perhaps had an inkling that there was not going to be much action, and so they immediately launched a video continuing the same theme of the industries and the people whose livelihoods are being destroyed by this continued reluctance to restart cruise. And they've also noted very much that more than 3 million people now have cruised post-pandemic around the world. Very, very few of them in Australia. A few hundred. It's just terribly wrong. But anyway, there was apparently going to be a meeting with New South Wales authorities this week, I understand, between CLIA. But as was noted in that minutes from the National Cabinet meeting, the feds hold the final say. Well, essentially, the cruise ban needs to be lifted first, and then individual states will be able to choose what they do. And obviously, New South Wales, I presume, will be first off the blocks in that regard. But it's all still down to that biosecurity ban, which at the moment, 17th of December. Surely it can't get extended again, but
you would hope not. You would hope not. Yeah.
So that might put a sunset on it. So it's just over a month away. But as we've said, who's going to roll the dice? Maybe Norwegian. Might be the first international cruise line back in Australian waters at the current rate.
It's been a while since we set sail, and a lot has happened in that time. We worked with medical experts, health authorities and cruise communities to develop new health protocols for our industry. We introduced some of the most stringent COVID-19 measures to be found anywhere in world tourism. We've supported millions of passengers who have already sailed in countries where cruising has resumed, responsibly and successfully. We united with our industry suppliers to advocate for the many thousands of Australian and New Zealand businesses that depend on cruising. We delivered detailed health protocols to our governments, opening a pathway to our revival. And we're ready for a green light, for a chance to make a careful return to sea. To all those craving their next ocean adventure, we're ready. Ready to set sail. Ready to get back to doing what we love. Let us show you what we can do.
Other side of the coin, Dream Cruise. I mean, we're talking about starting here, but Dream Cruises have been celebrating their first anniversary of getting up and running in Singapore.
Yeah, 12 months. Now, 12 months under strict requirements, very safe. Initially, very low capacity. I think it was 25%, then they went to 50. Now they're even sailing fuller. Singapore, we've got vaccinated travel lanes. So yes, you could, as an Aussie, I think that you could fly to Singapore tomorrow and hop on a Dream Cruise. It's only a 7-hour flight, but you can't do it here. But a great achievement by Dream. And I noticed something really interesting is that even they've convinced, I think it's Western Australian Tourism, can you believe it, to showcase some of their destinations on board the ships. And so they've got some WA themed rooms and WA.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it?
It's just so ironic, WA with the highest borders in Australia. When will they, it's hard to imagine what Singaporean will ever be able to fly back to WA, and yet WA Tourism putting money into that promotion on a cruise ship in Singapore. Just insanity.
Yes. Yeah.
Crazy.
Irony with the capital I.
Yeah.
Disney Cruises. They've got Disney Wish launching next year, and they've announced that they've got a bit of a family activity on board.
Yeah. Look, I love Disney. I've never been lucky enough to do a Disney cruise, but I just think the whole, it truly is a magical experience. And obviously they've got a huge array of characters that they can use. Incredibles. I don't know if there's a new movie coming out, but there's a couple of Incredible movies, and I love Mr. Incredible. And just great to see that they can capture some of that excitement around that for this onboard competition. And I did see also that they're also offering, are they going to do virtual Marvel characters on board? I think you can have lunch with a Marvel character, but it's a hologram. Anyway, lots of excitement happening around Disney cruises. Disney's
one of those ones that's a bit of a bucket list.
Yeah.
So I think, who cares about the kids? Just
exactly.
let's just go.
Yeah.
Now, Clear Member Cruise Line. So, we talked about sustainability. A lot of them are adapting green tech into their builds and things like that.
Yeah. Look, again, this is an instance where, perhaps from some point of view of someone like Hurtigruten, it's better to be inside the tent than out. This push to environmental sustainability, and we've had COP26 this week in Glasgow, so it's all been on the agenda, but there is a competition between cruise lines to ensure that they are meeting environmental standards and exceeding it. And so where they can, look, ships are heavily they require a lot of maintenance, they require a lot of they're going in for dry docks all the time, they require maintenance and upgrades. And so anything that is influencing them to do that in a sustainable manner, so put in new equipment that will, food digesters or things that clean up emissions, reduce, the use of fuel, make things more efficient. Anything that does that industry-wide has to be much, it's a really positive thing. And so they're working hard towards these goals to improve the sustainability and to be honest, the image of the cruise industry, because as we know, to market to future generations, that's one of the boxes you've definitely got to tick.
Yeah, absolutely. Regent Seven Seas. Now it's a cruise line that I guess probably a lot of Aussies don't know a huge amount about. They've got a new build, Regent Seven Seas Grandeur.
Yeah.
Highest guest to staff ratio, largest, sort of most space on the cabins, and
you name it, it's got it.
Really,
I've been lucky enough to cruise Regent, and it's an amazing product. It really, every expectation they exceed. It's an all-inclusive product, and so the fares, when you first look at the fares, you think, oh gosh, that's expensive. But when you get off, there's no bar bill. There's no, we did all these short excursions. There's no, you've paid for everything up front. And that appeals to certainly to some people. And so Grandeur continues that. The aspiration is to be the best of everything, in everything that they do. And yes, really great to see this investment. It's obviously part of the Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings family, and really carving out that niche at the top end. Very demanding clientele. But gosh, it is such a lovely product, and yeah, I can't wait to see what Grandeur, because I've been on, I've done inspections of various ships, and in the Regent Seven Seas fleet, I was lucky enough to cruise from Rome to Barcelona just before the COVID crisis hit, and it's really a lovely experience.
There's smaller ships, aren't there? I mean, you're talking around 700, I think, passengers or guests.
Smaller, and a huge array. It's all balcony cabins, lots of onboard eateries, and there's never a glass of, can I have a glass of bubbly? Will there be champagne? It's there's no everything is top shelf. It's just a really different way to approach the holiday experience, and yes, highly recommended, and I have no doubt that Grandeur will take that all to the next level.
Speaking of Norwegian family, NCL, their mandate for vaccines is basically in place indefinitely, they're saying at the moment.
Yes, this is quite interesting. It was in that same quarterly update where they talked about the deployment of Norwegian Spirit here. They've obviously had a big battle with authorities in Florida, particularly, to do with the way that Florida wouldn't allow them to mandate vaccination. I think they've won that fight, and they say that mandating vaccination is a key competitive advantage to their competitors, and so they're going to stick with it. So good on them. A leadership position, making the most of their strength in the market, and being a bit different. So yes, they've said indefinitely. Now, in Australia, we've already had P&O Australia say they're going to have a vaccine mandate, and so various carnival brands are doing it differently, brand by brand. But for Norwegian to mandate it right across all of the Norwegian fleet, pretty big deal. So that's great.
Yeah, that's and saying it's indefinite. It's not just for the next 12 months. It's basically until we decide otherwise. Going
forward, and I think that does give cruisers, a feeling of safety, assurance. It's just that extra level of, on top of all the multi-layered protocols that they're already implementing to make these things happen. So it's great. Yeah.
Closer to home, Spirit of Tasmania are looking at home porting, I guess, as you will. Yeah. So they're moving from Port Melbourne to Geelong.
Yeah, this is interesting. Geelong obviously has Avalon Airport, and so there's good connectivity there. And I presume it's cheaper to operate in a place like that rather than bringing it into Melbourne Port. It also frees up dock space in Melbourne, so that's also interesting for the rest of the cruise industry.
Well, I know Melbourne has been. There are logistical difficulties with Melbourne when there's a cruise ship in, and when you've got the Spirit of Tasmania with cars.
Yeah,
trying to get on board.
And the Spirit of Tasmania, operating every day. So it's quite a change. I mean, there are other issues with Melbourne in terms of being a long way from the Pacific Islands, or an extra day's sailing. So it does make itineraries a little difficult. But this is a really good thing, I think, both for Spirit of Tasmania and for Melbourne. And even for self-drive travellers taking their cars to, say from New South Wales or Queensland, driving to Tassie. It's not much different. You turn right instead of left, at some point on the Hume Highway.
Well, I think Geelong, the last few years, has come leaps and bounds. I mean, it's sort of similar, I guess, to Newcastle.
Absolutely.
To Sydney. Like it's an old mining town sort of mentality, but they've really gone for tourism in a big way, haven't they?
Yeah.
Last few years.
It's a lovely spot. I was at a conference there going just before COVID, and yes, I was really impressed.
Big news from Royal Caribbean.
Hello to all our travel advisor friends. I wanted to reach out to you this morning, again from my backyard, and again with my wife acting as my camera person. I'm sending you this simultaneously with our press release because I wanted you to hear from me that I have decided to step down as the CEO of the Royal Caribbean Group. I'm not disappearing from this industry we all love. I will remain as chair and I will continue my involvement in our new building projects. But starting in January, I will no longer be involved in the day-to-day running of the business. I'm excited to say that I will be turning over the reins to my longtime friend and partner, Jason Liberty. Jason and I have worked together for half of my 33 years at Royal Caribbean, and I could not be more pleased to see such a principled and effective leader taking the helm of this wonderful company.
Yeah.
Richard Fain, who's been at the helm pretty much for best part of 35 years, has decided that now's the time to move on.
Just absolutely amazing. Look, the end of an era, and to do it, he's been there for a long time, and he's not going anywhere. He's becoming chairman of the board. And appointing a CEO, but the CEO will have him looking over his shoulder every 5 minutes, I'm sure. Jason
Big shoes to fill,
the new guy. But Richard Fain, a pretty inspirational guy, and has really built that cruise line to an enormous operation.
Well, you look at what Royal Caribbean is these days, and just the innovation and everything else.
And he's overseen. I was lucky enough to go on the first Oasis of the Seas, the world's biggest cruise ship, when it launched out of Fort Lauderdale. The innovation, it's just, at that time you couldn't really have a really wide cruise ship because, they were worried about them fitting through the Panama Canal. Well, blow that, we're just going to sail in the Caribbean and we're going to make it super wide. And are there a whole lot of interior cabins? Well, there are, but they've got balconies that face inside into this great big garden area called Central Park. Just all sorts of innovations. And then they've done the Quantum of the Seas class, acquired Silver Sea, just some incredible moves. And also overseen the launch of Celebrity Edge, that whole program. Really just an incredible brand evolution, and even seen the launch of an office in Australia. 10, 15 years ago, there was no... there was a GSA, people had never even heard of the brand, and you think, you'd for a Caribbean cruise, but who would fly all the way to Florida? But we've had the ships coming here. In fact, such innovation, even in our local market. So definitely the end of an era.
I think in the industry, they're the ones that have been for many years at the forefront of technology and the stuff you can do on board. Like people were thinking, maybe water slide or something years ago, but rock climbing walls and ice skating rinks and all the stuff.
The North Star, this pod that sort of hovers over the side and just amazing.
It's certainly end of an era, and it'll be interesting to see how that sort of continues and things like that. I mean, he's still, as you said, involved and things like that. But certainly, wow. If there's one man that's sort of driven the company to new heights, I mean, that would have to be up the top there.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, there was an interesting story this week that came out of a study, I think, from University in Queensland about cruising maybe starting to lose the older generation.
Yeah, this is a funny one. I've just been speaking to someone at Clare, and they think it's more. You could say more research needs to be done. Who were the sample size that they spoke about? I think that it probably reflects, not that they're losing the older generations, I think that it does reflect some hesitancy in terms of COVID, and I think that it will be a flash in the pan. Yes. Doesn't hurt to do these things.
I mean, if it's done in Queensland, it's possibly if it's an Australian slanted thing, a lot of those people won't fly to other destinations or to cruise locally and things like that. So,
which you haven't been able to do. So, yes, perhaps a follow-up study required. Definitely the word on the ground from the cruise lines is that's definitely at the moment not the case. There's a huge amount of bookings happening, and people, the older generation, they just can't wait to get back on a cruise ship because they think it might be the last time because they're getting older, and they've missed out on a couple of years of cruising. So, yes.
MSC, doing some charitable things. They're really sort of getting behind Haiti and raising funds for that nation.
I mean, Haiti's an interesting, there's a big Royal Caribbean compound on Haiti. Cruise line's definitely getting involved because it's part of the Caribbean. But yes, really good to see that, again, a fairly selfless act by MSC to, which, particularly given that it's not a cruise line that you'd normally associate with the Caribbean, but obviously they are building a lot of big ships and, expect to have an even bigger presence in that area of the world in future years. I guess they're shoring that up and definitely sort of being on the radar, supporting the local community. It's really great to see.
Well, I mean, the nation itself has gone through some pretty horrific sort of natural and political events the last few years. So,
crazy.
P&O, bit of a shock announcement, I guess, for many yesterday or this week that they're cancelling their entire seasons out of Adelaide, Cairns and Perth.
I think this is really ramping up the pressure on those governments. They've held on, and there's just no certainty, and particularly with the WA Premier, just being quite recalcitrant in terms of adhering to the plan that everyone's already agreed to, but no, he's got to go his own way. How can you operate a cruise line like that? And so these ports are missing out on millions and millions of dollars, ruined holidays for thousands of Aussies. Just crazy. P&O, definitely walking a fine line. They've also announced that they're not going to cruise to PNG this year, and again, obviously that's because of COVID concerns. I kind of get that, but for these states to be missing out on even a home port season of cruises with residents from that state to ports in that state, they've lost that ability as well. So very sad. Yeah,
it is. It is very sad. Princess, they're releasing their 2024 World Cruise, and I know from things I've been hearing is there's a big groundswell for that.
Well, particularly because they cancelled they did have a World Cruise out of Australia, which they've had to sadly cancel as well, on Coral Princess, and so all of those bookings, probably some of them will drift across very quickly to the 2024 World Cruise, because world cruisers love world cruising, and I'm sure it'll sell out in a flash, this one, as we've seen recently with others, 2023 for other cruise lines as well. As soon as they release these ones, there seems to be a lot of demand. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good little program too. I mean, they're always very popular, the World Cruises. Yeah. Speaking of Princess, Enchanted Princess, which is one that's sort of off the drawing boards and getting underway. They've showcased the ship ahead of the... it's kind of a shakedown cruise, but that's being officially named in just over a month's time, 14th of December. But yes, again, we talk about innovation. It's a brand new, amazing ship that has, continued to be constructed through the pandemic. They've definitely slowed down the new builds because of uncertainties about demand, but so great to see innovation and inspiration. I mean, in Enchanted Princess, we won't see it down here for a while, but just to see those images of people cruising, having a great experience on board, it's got to inspire us, for better days.
Inspire us or make us greener with jealousy.
Yeah.
So Enchanted, I guess, is in the same vein of Royal and Majestic Princess.
Correct. Yes, part of that family
as well.
So the latest in that series. So great to see.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it once again for this week. It's been good to catch up again, and there's just ongoing things happening and ongoing frustration. We talk about it every week. One day we might get there. But thank you once again, Bruce, for
no
catching
problem.
up.
My pleasure.
Always good to chat, and always good to catch up with what's been going on.
Good on you. Okay, catch you next time.
We'll see you next week.
Good on you. Thanks,
Bruce.
mate.
Bye.
Cheers. See ya.